Thank you.
Joining me now is Senator Tammy Duckworth, who is a Democrat from Illinois and a member of the Armed Services Committee. And Senator, thank you for being here. I don't know if you were able to hear the public advocate in New York. He was talking about the responding to the proposals for reform inside of New York City. There also is a Senate and a House initiative to try to change the way that policing is conducted in this country. What are the chances of that passing through the Senate?
Well, as long as Donald Trump is president and Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Senate, it has zero chances of passing. I'll give you an example. I have introduced my bill on police training and reform, Independent Investigation Reform Act. I started introducing it 3 years ago, and it still has not been given a chance to see the light of day. I actually asked for unanimous consent to pass it 3 days ago, and Lindsey Graham came to the floor and objected. And so this is where we are. And until we get Mitch McConnell out of the leadership role on the Senate side and Donald Trump out of the White House, and none of this is going to pass.
And just for our audience, just to remind you of what it is that the senator is saying has no chance of passing. Per Politico, current federal law states that police officers have to willfully deprive a person of their constitutional rights in order to be charged with wrongdoing. According to Justice Department website, Democrats want to revise the federal standard from willful to knowingly or with reckless disregard, as well as altering the language covering when such illegal acts found to have resulted in someone's death. Also want to finally make lynching a federal crime and ban the chokehold. And Senator Duckworth, you're saying that is not going to go through. I also want to talk about one of the other things you've demanded, investigations into these military helicopters, which buzzed the protests in D.C. And you, of course, are a former Army Black Hawk pilot, and you're demanding investigations as to why they did that, sort of spraying the protesters with wind that was so gusty that it could have broken windows and injured people. Have you ever seen anything like that happen in an American city?
I have never seen anything like that happening on purpose, and I certainly never received any training either as a member of the Army Reserves or as the National Guard in terms of flight maneuvers. That is something to be conducted. In fact, all of my training and the FAA regulation actually states that you shall not fly an aircraft lower than 400 feet above ground level where there are gatherings of people. So those aircraft broke all sorts of rules, both in terms of military policy as well as FAA regulations. And that's why I am demanding an investigation into this, because somebody gave those pilots permission to do that, and I want to know who. And I want to know what the risk assessment was, and why was it that, one of those aircraft was a Lakota, which is a medevac, a medical evacuation helicopter. So what was it doing there performing a maneuver against protesters who were peacefully demonstrating? So there's a lot of questions to be answered, and I'm going to be asking them and demanding answers.
Are you surprised to hear so many generals come out and decry the actions that were taken by this president to try to quell protests using the military, when in fact, as you just mentioned, the military went ahead and did some of the things that they were told to do, that they participated? What do you make of all of the number of generals, and I think this morning, including General Colin Powell, who've come out and said this was wrong?
Well, I am very much pleased that General Colin Powell, Secretary Powell, came forward and said something, and that General Mathis and all of the other generals, General Allen, have spoken up. This is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Our military leaders are supposed to be the ones who stand up for the Constitution of the United States, and are supposed to be the ones who tell their leaders, the commander-in-chief, that is an illegal order. You cannot do that. And I was very, very much appalled that we actually had Secretary Esper on a phone call with our nation's governors, repeating what the president said about having to dominate the protesters. And in fact, Secretary Esper called peaceful protesters a battle space that needed to be dominated. I went against everything, every fiber of my being as a former soldier, and I know it went against every fiber of every military person's being. So it was really good to see that military leaders are finally speaking up and saying, no, sir, that is not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I want to let you listen to, and you probably heard this before, this is William Barr, the Attorney General, defending the unmarked agents that were flooding the Capitol, that were, guarding the Lincoln Memorial. There's just so many of them out there, and it's not clear who they are, but they're exercising either police or military power on the streets of the United States. Here he is defending that.
In the federal system, we don't wear badges with our name. I mean, the agents don't wear badges in their names and stuff like that, which many civilian police agents, non-federal police agencies do. I could understand why some of these individuals simply wouldn't want to talk to people about who they are, if that in fact was the case.
Is that credible to you as an explanation?
But it's not credible to me that Bill Barr didn't know what he was doing. Obviously, he gave this order, and in fact, he brought in people such as people from the Bureau of Prisons. And the reason that they don't wear, when you are a prison guard and you're not, you don't wear identification as your police because the people you're guarding are actually behind bars. I think that this is absolutely inappropriate what he's doing. There were TSA security people out there. What are the people supposed to be doing guarding our airports? What are they doing out there? Doing crowd control against peaceful protesters. And so this whole use by Bill Barr of federal security forces, whether it's FBI, CIA, TSA, Federal Bureau of Prisons, is completely inappropriate. And it shows how much he's willing to pervert the criminal justice system for the benefit of a single person, Donald Trump. I'm ashamed that he is our Attorney General.
And I have to, before I lose my time with you here, you wrote a piece for NBC News Think, along with Joe Biden, decrying Donald Trump and the way that he has encouraged anti-Asian racism as part of his messaging campaign about COVID. It was published on May 27th to commemorate the end of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about why you wrote that op-ed and what you see happening among AAPI, in the AAPI community as a result of the things Donald Trump has said.
Well, Donald Trump has certainly purposefully tried to demonize the AAPI community. But let me just say this, that Joe Biden is the kind of leader we need in the White House, who is going to be very much sensitive to, but also take action and take leadership on issues of diversity and racism in our country, whether it is against AAPI or the criminal justice system against Black Americans. We need to understand in this country that there is systematic racism and injustice against Black Americans, specifically because of the color of their skin. Yes, I have been told to go home to my country, and yet my ancestors fought here for the revolution. But at no point did somebody try to kill me the way a police officer killed George Floyd on that city street. So let's be clear what the issue that we're talking about right now. We're talking about Black Americans being targeted, being victimized by the very same policing forces that are supposed to serve and protect. There are many good police officers out there right now, but there is a bias and racism in the system that has to be fixed. And I think that Joe Biden is the man to do that. And yes, he will also address the racism against Asian Americans, because what he's going to do is bring us together, not divide us. As General Mattis said about Donald Trump, he doesn't even pretend to bring us together. All he's about doing is dividing Americans and splitting us up into groups and tribes. That's not what we need right now. We need to come back and unite under the flag, under the Constitution of the United States, and make sure that every single person in this country is treated equally. Whether you are going for a jog, whether you are going out to ride your bicycle, whatever it is that you're doing, you need to be treated equally under the law, and that's not what is happening right now.
Well said. We are out of time, but I almost hate to ask you this, do you know whether or not, Senator, you're being vetted by Joe Biden to potentially be his running mate?
You know, their process is just moving on their own. I'm not going to get involved in whatever process that they're going through. Joe Biden has been a vice president. He knows what he is looking for. I would do whatever I can to get him elected to president because I think we need him in the White House to bind the wounds of this country. We have gaping wounds across the country right now. Donald Trump is not the man to help us heal our wounds and bring us back together and bring real leadership. Donald Trump is spending all of his time in a bunker in the White House, hunkered down, worried about his reelection and not worried about fixing the problems in this country. Joe Biden, on the other hand, is the man who's going to help unify us as a country and lead us out of the economic morass we're in, the racism that we're in, the issues that we're facing. And I'll let that other process move on its own.
Well said by somebody who is yourself a heroic member of the United States military. Senator Tammy Duckworth, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.